Hello, this is Casey from the Kenton County Public Library. This is our genealogy chat that we do every Sunday. I'm going to give a couple minutes here for people to get logged in. I will say we were having a couple of technical difficulties getting into the software, but hopefully through the app everything will work out. My colleague Sierra is on the chat to answer any questions people might have and to also give me a little technical help her as well. I made sure she let me know if you could hear and see me, and it seems like that's working out, so we will get started. Today we're going to talk a little bit about geNKY, which stands for Genealogy Northern Kentucky. As most of you probably already know, that's one of our biggest databases in the website here. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So thank you for joining me. I see we got a couple more people. So give that a couple more minutes, and happy Mother's Day. Hi, Mom. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Looks like we have good weather too. I was going to make a joke that every Sunday that we've done these, it's been miserable, really terrible out, but it looks like it's going to be okay. So, okay, I think we can get started now since you can see and hear me. Like I said, our geNKY database, that's going to be a lot of our print materials. I've noticed in some of the past chats that we've had, a couple people wanted some more information about that, so we decided to make this session today about geNKY. Basically, geNKY covers a lot of different databases and topics within genealogy and local history important to Northern Kentucky. We have a lot of cemetery records on that. Sierra talked a little bit about that last week, I believe. Different cemetery records we have from Highland, Mary Smith Cemetery, Linden Grove, that's a big one. Jenkins, there's some census records, hospital records. St. Elizabeth has a couple of really interesting collections on there as well. The Family File Index, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Local history files, that's a very big database that I work primarily with in my position there, so I'll talk a little bit more in depth about that as well. And then we were talking last week in our department meeting, they brought up my colleagues that maybe I should talk a little bit more about some upcoming collections that will be added, so I'll talk a little bit more about some things that we've been working on since we've been out of the library. We're still working on stuff for the collections, whether it's geNKY or Faces and Places. When I was going back to see what we had been working on or been indexing, I kept coming up with more and more different collections that we've been trying to get ready to put up online, so I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So, just to get started and just to kind of reiterate, all the stuff on geNKY is going to be print documents. Most of that is from donations. Some of that is also pulled from different archival collections as well. But any kind of print or written word document is going to be put on geNKY for the most part. Let's see. I mentioned before a big portion of what geNKY covers is our Family File Index. And basically that is going to be any sort of prominent or well-known family within Northern Kentucky. All of the genealogy research that maybe someone has compiled over the years, different paper documents pertaining to any information about them, that's going to be in the Family File Index. And unfortunately, a lot of that stuff, that's just going to be in-house, which, of course, as most people know, we can't really get to that right now. You can still go online. geNKY stuff, you don't need a card, you don't need anything to get onto that. That's just log on to kentonlibrary.org, then go to the genealogy and local history page, and you'll be able to access that. But the family file index, really simple to use. Just if there's a particular person, a family member, maybe somebody you're doing research on, search through first, the last name, and anything that has been, any sort of search term with their name that has been OCR'd, which is basically our software that we use to pick up all the names within there. That will be able to be picked up through the document, and anytime that person's name is mentioned, it will come up. Now, some of that material might be only available to you if you're there at the library, but there is a lot of stuff on there that has been scanned and indexed, so there is quite a bit of material that you can look at through the safety of your home. So that's also a really good resource. Definitely if you're just getting started in genealogy, if you don't have a good baseline of a person that you're looking for, it's a good place to start. I know when I do research on maybe I'm doing house research, I'm trying to find a particular person that I might have come up in a census record. I like to look on the family file index to see just any kind of random or basic things that might come up. It might show you, where someone worked or where they lived, what their occupation was. If they were from a prominent family, maybe they had a business, that's going to all come up through the family file index. The other big database that I'll talk about is our local history files. Those are going to be local history index, which again, kind of like the family file index, it would just pick up anything in our vertical files that are housed at the library itself. We also have the family file local history full text, which is all of our documents that have been scanned and indexed. And there's a lot of those. When I was preparing for this, we have over, for the entire geNKY, over 500,000 records. So the local history files comprises of a lot of those files, really. So, and the stuff you're going to find on the local history files, that's any kind of prominent person, place, business. That's probably going to be find at least one or two things within the local history files. Again, some of that's in-house, but we do try to scan a lot of those documents to get them up there as quickly as possible, just because that's such a popular database, as most people know that have done any kind of research at the Covington branch can tell you. Let's see. What else? I will say we get a lot of questions, or at least I have, when we have patrons come to talk about some of the stuff that's on geNKY. People ask about, they'll see something that says Soundex. And just to get some background on that, that is not really a searchable item on there. A Soundex is basically, it's a name that's given through a coding system. It's just a phonetic spelling of the name, a code that goes to that. And it's used to pick up different phonetic spellings of names. So, like, say if the last name was Smith, anything that has that kind of S-M-I, whatever that kind of sound to it, that'll pick up on there. So I just thought it was worth mentioning that we have, people ask about that a lot. They think that's a way to search on geNKY, and it's really not. So just FYI, the Soundex is just something really more on the technical side for us to use. Let's see what else. I thought it would be kind of interesting. I feel like a lot of people that have used geNKY, the interface to search for different files and things, it's pretty straightforward. I thought maybe I'd talk a little bit about how we actually do some of the scanning and indexing, since it's such a big portion of what we do within our jobs. I will say for the most part, it's definitely a full team effort to put these online. I scan a lot of documents, but a lot of our part-time people, they do that as well. We usually have one person that scans all of our yearbooks. Maybe somebody else would do different, maybe other print documents to come through. Our volunteers are a big help. We had a young guy come in a couple months ago, and he probably just scanned for 8 hours doing different things. And that's the bulk of our new collections, is due to him just doing scanning all the time. So a big portion of our jobs comes through that. Indexing as well. If you go to geNKY and you search under the local history files, and you see those different descriptions, every single description on there, that's put in by either me or a volunteer or another staff member. All the names, places, page numbers, PDFs, that's all by hand. And then that goes over to our IT guy to be put online. So again, definitely a team effort. A lot of work goes into that to put up as much information, data for you guys to use for your genealogy. So definitely a lot of work, but to see it be used by so many people in the community, that's a really gratifying feeling, I think. So definitely continue to work on stuff while we're away from the library and get that information up there as quickly as possible to the patrons that use our resources. Let's see. I think I can see the chat here. I didn't know if I was going to on here. I don't know right now if we have any questions. My colleague Sierra is going to be answering questions as we go along here. So if you have any questions about how to use the local history files, any questions about the collections records themselves, like I mentioned before, Sierra talked a little bit about the cemetery records last week, or how to use cemetery records, and she really hit on pretty much all the big collections we have on geNKY. Like I said, Highland Cemetery, Linda Grove, Mary Smith. I'm sure there's a couple of other ones that I'm missing, but she did mention that as well. I know Elaine and Krista have mentioned those too. Yeah, the William Longstreet diaries. So I see a question there about those. That was something else I was going to mention. I thought it was kind of an interesting thing to maybe talk about those diaries, since there's been so much maybe discussion. I know Elaine talked about keeping a diary or scrapbook over time, just to sort of talk about things that we've been going through right now in history. So Tom wants to know, where is that from? Let me see if I can not pull up that real fast. Let's see. But the those William Longstreet diaries are really interesting, I think. I really love any of the scrapbooks or diaries we have on hand. Always a really great tool to kind of see what life was like during different time periods from a personal perspective. If I can pull it up real fast here. Let's see. Local history. Okay. I don't think the website really tells us exactly where those came from or who maybe have donated those. They were, let's see here, consist of William Longstreet's diaries from the years 1931 to 1942. It was compiled by some of his family members, given to us, I guess, around 2000. Let's see here. So he moved to Kentucky in the 1870s, buried over in Highland Cemetery. So I don't know if we actually know, or at least it doesn't say here who the exact person was that donated this, but yeah. Yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe if somebody else, if Sierra or Elaine is on the chat, they know off the top of their head, they can give you a better idea of maybe where that exactly came from. But yeah, that's a really great resource. A lot of interesting things within that. Let's see. Let's see. I was going to talk a little bit more, like I mentioned, some of the upcoming collections that we have that will be eventually put up on geNKY. Again, we're pretty lucky to be able to put all this on here online just remotely. So hopefully, I will be able to get some of that to our IT guy Gary that does all of our geNKY uploads. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of stuff that I've even forgotten about that we've been working on for a while now, so I'll go ahead and touch on those for a little bit. Two collections that we just had donated recently by one of our volunteers that comes in to do our coroner's reports. He donated a couple of little pamphlets from, or yearbooks is what they're referred to as, from the Covington Women's Club and the Latonia Literary Music Club. So the Covington Women's Club, that is just basically a civic club that started in or around the 1900s. Again, it was very much society ladies in Covington who would meet up to, discuss different topics of the day, music and books, things like that. Doing a little bit of research on the group, I will say they were also they were involved in a lot of different political or community-wise things. There's an article, I think, from maybe around the 1920s, maybe 1930s, that discusses some professors from Berea College wanted to come up and have them help raise money for local schools in the area that would just be for African American students. So, a lot of these groups at the time, it might have been more of high society things, but they did do a lot of community guided things as well. So they had an interest in that too. So again, the newspaper index or newspaper databases, there's tons of stuff on the group in there. I definitely am going to do a little bit more research on the Covington Women's Club, just because it's something that that name comes up a lot when I'm doing research on different people around the area. That and the Covington Art Club, which is still around, has been around forever. They did a lot of different things together as well. So that's a really, really interesting collection that he gave us. A lot of names and addresses on there, so hopefully someone doing genealogy work might be able to find something about a woman and her family that might have been a part of that club and get a little bit more information about that family member. And along with that, we also have the Latonia Literary and Music Club collection as well. Again, these are a little, they're really, really small. They're kind of literally about that small, or that big at least, hand-bound yearbooks, which is always really fun to get. Things that are really personal like that are a little bit more handmade. Makes it difficult to scan. You don't want to get anything too messed up in the process, but it's fun to work on those projects, and it's fun to put them up online as well, because it's a little bit different from just, maybe, old documents or newspapers. These collections from the two groups are really colorful. There's lots of little illustrations, just a lot of really fun to look at. But again, the Latonia Literary and Music Club, similar to the Women's Club, that they did a lot of civic things as well. Again, they mentioned a lot in the society pages within the Kentucky Post. I think from the research I've found, I think they started a little bit later than the Women's Club, maybe like around the 1910s, 1920s, I think. Again, they did a lot of work with local schools, raising money for different things like that. So hopefully we'll be able to get those those are in the process of being indexed right now, so I'd like to get those up at some point later this month, just because they're so much fun to look at too, and also a lot of really great data on that in those collections as well. Another really exciting thing that happened a couple months ago before everything kind of blew up. My colleague Krista had done a one-on-one with a man that worked over at, I don't want to butcher this name, it's a German name, Eulenkamp Urschel Funeral Home over in Newport. He was doing some one-on-one genealogy research, and he mentioned he had all these old records and receipt books all in the basement of the funeral home, and he said, if you want to come over and have these, scan them, get the information, he was willing to let us come over and do that. So Krista and I went over there one day and got just tons of stuff just to start out with. There was even more that we couldn't take in her little car, so that's definitely going to be, especially now that we can't get over there, as a long-term project. But funeral records, anything from a funeral home, is just really a gold mine in terms of genealogy documentation and research, as I'm sure most people that do their genealogy know. I know when we went over there, he said nobody had looked at these records in about 50 years, so getting able to pull those out and make use of all those records that had just been in the basement for years is a really great feeling. A lot of the stuff that I started to scan before we had to shut down, some of those are, the books are called record books, but they're really more, it was really more billing. A lot of stuff that I found so far from the books, billing from different funerals. They might have the name of the deceased, where they lived, the cemetery they were buried at, so all this is really great information to be used. And not just Northern Kentucky people, but also on the Cincinnati side as well. So that's always great to have some of that information about people that might have jumped back and forth on the river too. So again, this some of the books. The oldest book I think that we pulled was from 1908, and they go all the way up until about stuff from the 1980s. So a lot of stuff there that we will eventually scan and index and put online. And even before all this, it would be a long-term project, but it's one that we're definitely going to try to keep working on as much as we can. What else? I know when we were looking through some things, we also found a old embalming bag, which was pretty interesting, but we let them have that, so let's see. We also, another big collection, one of our volunteers scanned, is the Cincinnati Artistic Ironworks collection. Not to be confused with Stewart Ironworks. I know Stewart Ironworks has kind of gone from Cincinnati over to Erlanger, but this is strictly a Cincinnati company that we got a bunch of blueprints and old catalogs from, so that was probably well over, I would say, 1,000 documents there. And one of our newest part-time member, Kate, she just finally indexed all of it, which is amazing. So kudos to Kate for doing that for us as well. So that's kind of an interesting collection as well, even though it's not Northern Kentucky based. It's really kind of interesting to see some of that old Art Deco fixtures there. I was trying to do a little bit more research before I did this video on that company itself, and even some of their catalogs, they go for sale on eBay for a lot of money. So well known, probably primarily over in Cincinnati, of course, but the collection itself, kind of an interesting thing to look through if you're into maybe home restoration or house history. Some of the blueprints or the catalogs that have been scanned and indexed, maybe you're trying to find, something in an old house that you had, or something, ironwork in your home that might give you a better idea of, what time period that was from, or what kind of fixture that is. That's not really my area. That would be more of a Krista topic, but again, maybe something that you wouldn't think would be helpful in the long run. It might actually turn out to be something really interesting for you. That's something that I think is really great about geNKY. There's a lot of your well-known genealogy documents, like, the cemetery records, the census, different things like that, but then maybe more unexpected collections that might have more information that you would think, that you wouldn't think would be on there. So it takes creativity to find different genealogy avenues, so it's good to have all kinds of records on there, I think. What else? I have my notes here. Oh, a big one. One of our other volunteers, Emily, she had been working on continuing the Linden Grove Cemetery records. I know Krista had been working on that previously and had already uploaded quite a bit of that to our collection. Emily continued on the Linden Grove Cemetery records from the years 1892 into I'm not even off the top of my head sure how many years that goes to, but she continued from 1892 scanning some of those Linden Grove Cemetery records. So hopefully once everything gets back to a semblance of normalcy, we'll get have her come back in and continue to scan some of those records for us, because that's obviously a big collection for us, Linden Grove, and to be able to get all those eventually online would be really great. Let's see what else. There was a fairly big collection of Villa Hills newsletters. Again, more volunteers. One of our volunteers, Joan, was working on that. That's more of a contemporary collection. The newsletters themselves really aren't super old. I think the oldest came from the 1950s and then all the way up into the 2000s. So, again, not everything has to be really, really old to be put online or to have any kind of value. I think newer things are really great as well. You might, be able to track down somebody that's still alive, still an important part of the community. And a newsletter like the Villa Hills newsletter, it would be, a good place to start for that if you were looking for someone in that area. Again, that was also another volunteer collection, so hopefully we'll be able to get back to scanning and indexing those. I don't know if anybody is really indexing on that right now, but I will put somebody on that if I don't do that myself. So we have more yearbooks. Yearbooks are a really big part of geNKY as well. It's another collections were divided up into parts that are in-house collections that we have, and then some that are being put online too. Some putting all those yearbooks online, that's another big project that we're working on right now. I can pull up what some of our yearbooks are here. Let's see. Yeah, so the Northern Kentucky Yearbooks database here. Crescent Springs Elementary, that's on geNKY full text, and then Crescent Springs High School, 1934 and 1936, that is full text as well. Let's see what else. Yeah, Covington High School, Holmes High School, Ludlow, Simon Kenton, St. James High School in Ludlow. Those are all full text yearbook collections that are on geNKY as well. But the collections that are now being working on, that one of our part-time employees, Debbie, is working on, and Dawn, those are more Covington Holmes High School yearbooks from 1907 to 1926. So again, those older yearbooks are always really a great treasure trove, because not only do they have names, but they have pictures as well. So that's always, even if you don't have people from this area or have anybody that went there, I still think they're really interesting to look at, just to get a glimpse of what life might have been like during that time. In River Ridge Elementary, we also have from 1997 to 98. So again, more recent, but Also working to digitize the Covington High School yearbooks to put those online. So again, a big project we're working on. Seems like some of these projects are never ending, but we will eventually get those online as well. I know there's a couple more collections here that we might have. Let's see. The Virginia Bennett collection, or portions of that. This is probably about the last new collection that we had been working on. Again, our volunteer that had done all of our Cincinnati Ironworks collection, he also scanned, about 500 pages or more of these Virginia Bennett collections. And if you don't know who Virginia Bennett is, she was a really well-known person in the Covington, Newport community. She worked for the Green Line Steamboat Company for many, many years. And then when she retired, she also worked for the BB Riverboat Company, which I'm sure if you live anywhere near, gone down to the riverside at any point, you've seen those riverboats. She was also instrumental in starting the Tall Stacks Festival, which is no longer being put on, but she was also a part of that as well. So she was definitely well known in the area. But the portion of this Virginia Bennett collection is a lot of really great old photographs of life on the river, steamboats, different print documents as well. So it's a good mix of photographs and paper documents. So fun to scan and put on and to index. A little bit more difficult to crop and paste to put online, but definitely a lot of information there. And again, something that's, even if you don't have any sort of genealogical connection to that, it's just kind of fun to look at. A lot of really great snapshots into, a time and place of Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati. So I really enjoy looking at that collection as well. I will take a look here and see if there's been any questions. I think I've covered just about every new collection for geNKY that we've been working on. Let's see. Don't know if we have any more questions. If we do, I know, I think Elaine and Sierra have been on the chat so far to maybe keep people, keep those questions up to date and answer anything that people might have wanted to know anything more about geNKY. Again, we mentioned geNKY a lot in some of these past genealogy chats. So a lot of really interesting information on there to help out with your genealogy. If you have any questions concerning geNKY or Faces and Places or any other database we have or any other question, you can always email us at history@kentonlibrary.org. We will be around. I don't know if we have any other questions. So I will say thank you to everybody that watched. Again, it looks like it's going to be a nice day out. So once you finish up you're looking through geNKY that I've talked about, or any more of your genealogy research, maybe go out, enjoy your day, call your mom, tell her you love her, and I won't see you next week. Somebody else will see you. Maybe I'll see you again to do another one. But again, thank you for joining me, and have a nice rest of your day.